Welcome back to the Sad Boy Cinema Club. My name is Austin. His name is AJ. Join us as we try to find purpose and hope in America's true pastime, watching some good old-fashioned movies. You see the title, you see the thumbnail. Today, we are talking about arguably one of the greatest movies of all time. One of my personal 6 top movies of all time, my favorite movies ever. Never Back Down, released in 2008, directed by Jeff Wadlow, written by Chris Hardy, starring Sean Ferris, Amber Heard, Cam Gigonde, Evan Peters, and Jimon Hansu. And of course, the guy behind the camera, the cinematographer, is Lucas Etlin. I needed this movie for a lot of reasons. I've been in a very bro-y mood for my movie picks, especially on this podcast. I have suggested the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie from 1995. I've also suggested the first Fast and the Furious movie. I had to make sure that AJ knew what he was talking about and be immersed into that culture. So I just kind of figured I'd keep the motion going, be more broed out here. And while I do not consider myself a bro now, or even remotely interested in mixed martial arts at the same level I was back in the day, I still very much love this movie. I know the answer to this, but please explain to our audience how you feel about mixed martial arts.
Don't lie to the people. You know you have those bedazzled affliction jeans and like all that stuff just hanging up in that closet just off from camera. Um, as far as MMA goes, honestly, it's not for me. Shocker. I'm not into fast cars. I'm not into MMA. I'm not into a whole bunch of just sweaty guys or girls just grinding on each other. Um, I think I was a bigger fan or would be a bigger fan of. I do like bare knuckle boxing, so I kind of could see the appeal, especially to old MMA, like when it first came out, like when UFC first hit the market. Um, but like this new stuff, it's not for me.
We'll save it for the end, obviously, for our letterbox score. I can only imagine how you'll grade this. I am hoping that some of the things that I appreciate about the film that aren't strictly fighting, you would also appreciate. But we'll save that for the end. We'll see how it goes. Let's just hop into this thing. The movie starts off, and we are treated to some Friday Night Lights, which, if you're even like remotely familiar with this movie, you might be a little confused because football and mixed martial arts don't exactly go hand in hand. Jake Tyler, though, our main character here, is absolutely dominating, has 15 tackles in a game. I come from a high school that was pretty bad at football. I don't think anybody had 15 tackles anywhere close in a game. So Jake Tyler is absolutely killing it right now. Some dickhead on the other team who couldn't lace Jake's goddamn boots starts running his mouth about Jake's dad, who's recently passed away from a drunk driving accident. And Jake, very rightly, has an issue with that and knocks the kid out cold, and the entire teams start to brawl.
What I liked about that when they started fighting is he immediately went to the Myles Garrett attack method, where he started swinging that helmet around. And honestly, that's the smartest way. Like, don't ever knuckle up on the football field, especially if you both have helmets on. Like, you're just gonna break your hand. Like, and then I also like that he went after the whole other team. Like, he beat the shit out of that one kid, and then immediately was like, "All right, who's next? Who's ready to ride?"
Yeah, he was trying to kill that kid with the helmet, 100%. After the game, we learn that Jake and his family are getting ready to move to Orlando. Jake comes home from the game, and we meet his mom and his younger brother, Charlie. Jake's mom, not too
He's a
pleased
dick.
with all this, not too pleased with all this fighting that's been going on. And apparently, Jake has had a pretty big history of it. Jake and his family are moving to Orlando because Charlie is a bit of a tennis prodigy. While packing up for this move, Jake and Charlie find a box of their dad's stuff, and it's still a little bit of a sore subject for Jake here. A little bit of a montage, a little moving montage for us. We're in Orlando now, and it's Jake's first day of school. It's the biggest high school I've ever seen, ever. So many people. It's like a 10A high school, just a zillion people there. And of course, it's a first day. It's probably in the middle of a school year anyway, because it is already football season. So it's kind of hard to be adjusting to this whole thing. Jake eats lunch by himself. And when he's heading back to class, he stumbles upon this other kid getting his shit rocked, getting his ass beat. Jake jumps in like the hero that he is. He jumps in to try to help this guy, but the guy who's getting his ass beat pushes him off. Jake, very confused, walks away from this makeshift fight club, and the group goes back to beating each other up and the guy kind of enjoys it. We're now in real class, and we get to meet Baja Miller, played by Amber Heard, and she and Jake have instant chemistry. Little fun fact here: I did not know that was Amber. I've seen this movie, God, I don't know, 10, 15, 20, maybe even 30 times. I didn't know that was Amber Heard until a couple years ago. Me and my partner were talking about the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial, and she asked, what is she even famous for? I said, well, she's in the Aquaman movies. That's all I really know. So I Googled her, started rolling through the filmography. I'm like, huh, Baja Miller, huh? And it was a great day for me in this household.
So this movie came out before Baja Blast, correct?
As much of a fan as I am of Baja Blast, I could not tell you what year it came out, but this came out in 2008. So potentially,
Baja Blast came out July 29th of 2004. So I'm thinking her parents weren't stoners. They're just Taco Bell fans, which I guess could still be a stoner, but they love that delicious tropical zestiness of the Baja Blast.
And who could blame them, right? Without being pressed on it, I think I could easily say that Baja Blast is my favorite Mountain Dew. I know that you're a Code Red boy, but Baja Blast, that's doing something for me.
I am a Code Red boy, but I'm weird. Like, I like my soda in seasons, if that makes sense. So like in the summer, I'm a Livewire man, but in the winter months, it's Code Red, and I don't understand why. Also, have you tried the Midnight from Taco Bell? It's pretty good. I like it. Nice purple Mountain Dew.
We're back at Jake's new home, and he's still really just not doing well. He's fighting with his family and wishes that they could just stop living out of boxes. And his mom said, if you want to stop living out of boxes, how about you unpack? Which is pretty fair, I guess, even though you aren't exactly a fan of her. I guess you just don't like authority, huh?
My thing is, like, one, if I'm this family, obviously Jake has been, like, in trouble because she mentions, he's had these issues. I would be so fucking excited to move from Iowa to fucking Orlando, Florida. Even if you're not a fan of, like, Disney or anything like that, but just imagine, like, you have so much more shit you can experience and do. Like, yes, please. And no, you can tell this is a movie because no kid is pissy about eating takeout food every night. Like, that's how I grew up. And honestly, I miss home cooked meals. So yeah, I don't know. This movie straight up lies.
Well, maybe it's the whole dead dad thing that's really bumming him out. That's my guess about the whole thing. He's not necessarily mad about the takeout, but maybe it's the whole dad thing. The next day at school, Max, the guy who was getting his ass beat the other day, sits down at Jake's lunch table and introduces himself. Max tells Jake that there is a video circulating of his last brawl in Iowa, and it's starting to make the rounds here at school. Luckily, there is a fighting culture at this school, and Max thinks that Jake's has what it takes to be one of the all-time greats. Jake's not interested in this idea at all. Jake's fight clip is going pretty viral now, and everybody at the school starts to take notice. School's out for the day, and Baja pulls up right beside of him, invites Jake to this party later this evening. And then when the party happens, when we arrive at the party, it is a fever dream from the mid-2000s. Girls, booze, music, everything that anyone has ever worn an Affliction shirt has ever wanted in their life, it's there at this party. And as someone who wore Affliction shirts back in the day, this was definitely my dream idea of a party. Finally meet the guy who owns this house, or is his parents own the house. He lives in the house. Ryan McCarthy, who is also the ringleader of that fight club that we saw at school. He and Jake start getting acquainted, and Ryan shows Jake to the fight pit in his backyard. Jake is shocked at what's actually happening here. He doesn't really know what to think. He sees Baja Miller walk toward him, and before he could even say anything, Ryan says that it's time for the main event of the evening. Ryan versus Jake for everyone to watch. Jake's very hesitant about the whole thing, and he outright says no multiple times, but Ryan really just can't accept that at all. He says, quote, "You have to give the people what they want." Jake says no again. Ryan keeps asking him, if you're not here to fight, what are you doing here? And he gestures towards Baja, which is super awkward because Ryan walks over and kisses her right on the mouth. They're dating, so Jake really doesn't have a reason to be here. anymore. He tries to leave, but gets stopped by some of Ryan's goons. To get Jake to agree to the fight, Ryan brings up Jake's dead dad, and Jake wasn't having any of it. He even mentions the fact that Jake should have been driving that night and alludes to if maybe he was, maybe his dad would still be around. A little touchy subject that would make me want to fight as well. Jake, again, rightly, absolutely snaps, and he's ready for war. The fight starts, and Jake is outclassed pretty quickly by Ryan, who you can tell is very much trained in this subject. Jake has this very old school boxing approach, and Ryan tells him that he's got to mix it up if he wants to win. Jake tries multiple times to get up from this fight and this ass beating, and every time Ryan puts him back down. After being put down for the final time, Max takes Jake back to his home for some shut-eye. The next day, Charlie finds him looking like absolute shit and says that he won't say anything to their mom, which, again, that's a pretty cool little brother thing. I don't think that my little brother would have done that if I was in that situation, so shout out to Charlie.
Also, too, like, if his mom has eyes, like, just look at him. He looked like he was just beat up hamburger. Like, I mean, his face was fucked.
After a day of recuperating, Max comes to check on Jake. Max basically begs Jake to come learn mixed martial arts with him at this gym under John Roca, who has trained a bunch of professional fighters. Jake initially says no, but the next day does show up to the MMA gym. Max introduces Jake to Roca. Roca says that people who show up to his gym for the wrong reasons don't last very long because he can see that Jake's beat up pretty bad. He also says that if he wants to train, he can show up tomorrow in the beginner's class, but Jake says he's a quick learner, he can do it, whatever. Roca gives him a shot and is thrown into like this very intense circuit training, and he's struggling a pretty significant bit. After a warm-up that would have certainly killed me, we finally get to see some sparring, and Jake underestimates his opponent a lot, which is rule number 1 in fighting. Don't ever do that. He gets his ass beat in seismic proportions. In round 1, he gets tapped out in literal seconds. In round 2, he catches a knee to the face. And then in round 3, he gets choked out. Roca does sort of admire this whole never back down attitude that Jake has and says that he can come back tomorrow, but warns there's absolutely no fighting outside of this gym. We're back at Jake's house again, and Baja Miller actually shows up to Jake's house to apologize. Jake's not really having any of it, but Baja says that she realizes that she was wrong. Jake still isn't pleased, and Baja leaves. The next day, Jake shows up to the gym early and says that he needs to get some work in because he needs to practice. Roca shows him some techniques, including how to control his breathing, which will become very important later. After a very 2000s coded montage, Jake heads back to the house and he's questioned by his mother. She knows that Jake took out $200 from his bank account and asks what he's doing with it. She sees fighting gear in his bag and says that his fighting days are over. The next day at school, Jake and Baja are put into this group project, and they argue some more over whose fault it is and is not. After school, though, Baja confronts Ryan about what he did to Jake. She said that it was wrong and that it crossed the line. Ryan could not possibly care less, and so Baja breaks up with him. He's flabbergasted at this whole situation because this is happening in front of his boys. And he's just confused that she cares so much about beating up a random kid and reminds her that she was nobody before they started dating. Baja tries to walk away. Ryan forcefully grabs her arm. Jake sees this and tries to step in, but Baja tells him not to. Before making his final exit, Jake takes another shot at his deceased dad. Really just poking that fire there. Later that day, the next day, Jake is at the gym sparring, but he just can't let it go. He's so caught up in trying to get his frustrations out that he's hurting his sparring partners and himself. Roca decides to step in and tries to calm Jake down. Jake takes offense to it, though. He makes note of the fact that Roca lives in the gym in front of the whole class, and Roca tells him to go cool off and come back tomorrow. After leaving the gym, Jake and Max are driving when they come up to this stop sign. Jake starts to have some flashbacks of the night that his dad dies, and in the middle of that, a yellow Hummer, it really dates this movie, honestly, a yellow Hummer pulling up and starts blaring the horn at Max, who's driving. Jake snaps, gets out of the car to confront the Hummer. 3 big eyes come out and want to fight, and Jake puts belt to ass. Max manages to get all of this on video and, of course, uploads it to YouTube. That video is now making the rounds, And Brian doesn't seem too impressed, even though everybody else around him very much is. I love in the movie we get to see old school YouTube as well. Like this, you couldn't pass this movie off as even a mid 2010s movie. Like this is very much a time capsule into what that era was.
And honestly, like that was one of the things I really liked about this movie is the way they used pre-social media, like with YouTube and stuff, and the way they shot it and showed it on the phones. Like I thought that was honestly really, really intuitive.
Everybody's now at a beach, and Jake heads to the bathroom. Ryan follows him in there and tells him that he's not impressed that he beat up some douchebags in a Hummer. He also tells him that if he really wants to impress, he'll enter the beatdown. And then that's where they can settle this whole little beef they got going on. Jake asks Max what the beatdown is, and Max tells him that it's a single elimination tournament where only the best of the best walk out. True gladiator shit. Jake shows up the next day to train Rocha, but Rocha notices that his hands are roughed up. He tells Jake that he's broke the one rule, and he's done. Later that evening, Jake's home. It's dinner time, but Charlie has a black eye. Their mom is really upset because she thinks that Charlie got into a fight and that Jake's being a really bad example for it. After a little family drama that unfolds in a very dramatic way, Charlie explains that he got hit in the face with a tennis ball. He just thought it would be a better story if he got into a fight, and he's sorry that he lied.
I mean, he's not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, if I got a shiner, I would definitely say that I got into a fight and not attacked by a tennis ball, for sure. Jake tries to talk to Rocha the next day at the gym, but he shuts the gym door in his face. And that kind of leaves Jake and Max without options. They start a stakeout, like an old school police style stakeout of Rocha's place. And they say that he has to leave eventually. And once they do, we'll talk to him. They follow him into a grocery store. And Jake says that he lied to Rocha the first time that they met, and that he had every intention of fighting outside the gym. He begs Rocha to let him back into the gym, and Rocha agrees. But as we've seen from this next montage, he puts Jake through the ringer with Olympic level training.
I don't think he was a dick. I think he knew, and I mean, they get into it later, but I think he knows how dangerous that path is that Jake is heading down. And I think he knows that, all right, I've tried being nice. Now I've got to be tough. Now I got to give him this tough love.
That training has certainly paid off because Jake's starting to get the best of Rocha. After a race, Jake asks Rocha what his whole deal is by living at the gym. And Rocha tells him this story about he and his brother, who was also an MMA prodigy and a professional fighter, were at a bar one night. And a guy came up, started making trouble, wants to take a shot at the MMA fighter. The guy got his ass beat and was so embarrassed by this whole thing that he came back that night and shot his brother in the head. Rocha says that he hasn't been able to face his father ever since that night, and then quickly changes the subject and challenges Jake to another race. Pretty touchy subject. I wouldn't want to talk about it much either. Fair enough, Rocha. After some sparring with Rocha, Jake heads home and sees a note from his mom saying that Charlie has a tennis tournament. Jake shows up to that tournament for the first time ever in a long time, potentially, and honestly shows a lot of maturity throughout this whole process. With this newfound maturity, though, he goes and talks to Baja and apologizes for his part of being a dick in this situation. She accepts his apology, and they're boyfriend and girlfriend, apparently, just like
Baja
that.
Blast.
Later, Jake's mom shows up to Rocha's gym, and as a gesture of good faith, and again, this new maturity that Jake has found, pays for next month's gym fee, which, you've said that you're not very fond of Jake's mom, but that was at least cool, right?
Yeah, but she also took shots at Rocha. She was like, how many angry boys come here and get hurt? Bitch, it's a gym. What do you mean how many angry boys come here? Like, they're all angry. Like, this is what we do. It's better here than out on the street. And that's how I would have rebutted if I was Rocha. I thought it was kind of cool or kind of funny and slick that he was like, oh, because she was like, well, my dental plan hasn't kicked in yet. And he gave her a mouth guard. And he was like, this is my dental plan.
The next shot we get, Max gets a text message that says when and where the beatdown will happen. He tells Jake, but Jake's not like keen on participating anymore. He's in a good spot and he doesn't want to mess that up. Then Jake and Baja are in his room and have like a very cute, flirtatious back and forth. And I promise you that every single teenager who has ever seen this movie has wanted this exact thing to happen to them. They're, very cute and flirty. They make out for a little bit. Charlie comes in, interrupts them, and Baja says that they were just wrestling. Jake walks out, has to deal with a phone call or whatever, and Charlie says that he's a big wrestling fan, which that's one of my favorite parts of the movie, is just that little throwaway line right there. I mean, that probably is an improv on the day. We're now at Ryan's house, and we see his enabler father, which is literally the cause of all of like Ryan's deficiencies as a human, because he's trying to get these minors drunk. Fuck are we doing? Trying to get them drunk on margaritas. Ryan really doesn't like the fact that his dad's trying to do this and like tells him to bugger off. And then we see Ryan's dad rough him up a little bit before he does finally leave. So I'm going to bring up a movie that we've done before in Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Officer Mooney is the villain. You can't tell me otherwise. Ryan is also the villain here. At least in this movie, we have a reason as to why he's an ass. We don't have that with Officer Mooney. And if we had some sort of just a little keen backstory that would have given me some sort of insight as to why he's like that, maybe I wouldn't have been glad that he was turned into a ventriloquist dummy. Ryan, I'm not saying that he was right in any of this, obviously, but at least there's a reason that he's acting this way.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate here. My dad used to drink a lot. He never I hung out with all guys. So like he was never trying to like mac on any of them, which is fine if he wanted to. Live your life, king. But one time I kind of stood up to him and he put me in a headlock and was laughing and joking around. I stabbed that motherfucker in his head. My dad and I have actually have a good relationship now. So sometimes you got to mess with the bull. Sometimes you got to give him the horns. Stabbed my dad once. He's never stepped me again. So sometimes you just got to do it. Ryan shouldn't have been such a bitch.
Ryan gets wind of the fact that Jake doesn't want to be in the beatdown, and he's not having it. He said, absolutely not. Ryan pulls up to Roka's gym and starts to talk to Max. He invites Max over to the house to show some of the guys these new moves that he's been working on. And while they're at the house, Ryan offers to spar with Max. And while Max approaches this as like a very friendly bout, Ryan does not, and pulverizes Max into a very bloody pulp. Jake, Baja, and Charlie are at Jake's house. They're all playing cards, and the doorbell rings. Jake rushes downstairs and sees that Max is in pretty bad shape. They get him to the hospital. He has a broken nose, fractured ribs, 6 stitches in his lip. Jake says that he needs to borrow Max's car, and Baja follows him and says that Ryan's baiting him again, and he doesn't think that it's a good idea to fight him because giving up and walking away aren't the same thing. Jake says that's good because he's not doing either. Jake heads to the gym where Max's car is and gets stopped by Roka. Roka sees the fire in Jake's eyes and warns him to not go out for revenge because the results are going to be the same as before. You fight, you're out. Jake doesn't want this. He doesn't want this relationship, the sparring, the training from Roka to end. But he says he doesn't feel like he has a choice. He says that Roka deep down knows that if he could go back to the night that his brother died, that he would have done something about it instead of just sit idly by. Jake says that this is his fight, and no matter the consequences, he has to stop Ryan. So Jake heads to Club Zero, where the beatdown is taking place, and it is packed. I've never been to a club. This seems like too many people. This seems like a fire hazard.
We're at capacity.
It's midnight. It's time for the beatdown. The security break out some pads, and it's time to get the show started. It's our first fight, and the rules are laid out pretty clearly. No eye gouging, no crotch shots, and no biting. And the fights will end with a knockout or a tap out. This is some trivia for you. Do you know why we have those first 3 rudimentary rules? No eye gouging, no cross shots, no biting.
I'm assuming because somebody's done it before.
Yes. So mixed martial arts as an idea really became fully fledged in the early 90s. 1993, I'm pretty sure, was the first UFC event. And it was really the wild, wild west. Now you have weight classes and defined rules, and, USADA is involved, so no PEDs and all those kind of things. Back then, though, there were no weight classes. So we did see a guy who could be described as a sumo wrestler fight a flyweight, which is 125 pounds. And you can imagine how that fight went. But another fight on that card ended by a TKO because one of the guys kept punching the other one's balls.
Hey, that's a valid defense.
Whatever works, I guess. But because of that initial run of the UFC after the Wild Wild West era of that company and mixed martial arts in general, they were like, okay, guys, we're gonna have like some pretty defined rules as to what we can and can't do here. Dick punching, I don't think we can do that anymore.
I'm gonna be honest. Much like baseball, I think that sport is much better when the guys are juicing. Like, I don't. They're not model citizens. They're not Boy Scouts. They're MMA fighters. Like, let them be roided up. Let them be juiced out of their head, and let them beat the fuck out of each other. Like, I don't see what the harm is in it.
But what about the integrity of the game, Aaron?
Nobody cares. We can gamble on anything now. Nobody cares.
Well,
There's no integrity.
I didn't see you parading around the steroid games. Where was that on your timeline?
I don't have any interest in doing steroids, but I'm saying if you want to, do them. If you want to be an athlete and do steroids, do it. It obviously didn't make those guys in the juiced games any better. So
the moment has finally arrived. Ryan McCarthy versus Jake Tyler. Or so we think. The announcer made a mistake. The fighter's name is actually Taylor, who's fighting Ryan. So I guess we're going to have to wait for our matchup. We then get a super montage of Jake, Ryan, and some other fighters advancing through the tournament. Ryan picks up 2 knockout wins and a tap out win. And Jake picks up 3 submission wins. In Jake's third fight, though, he's pretty seriously beat up. And he has a pretty serious rib injury, which Ryan notices immediately, like any other good fighter would. Jake heads back to the locker room, puts some ice on it. Baha shows up and says that she couldn't walk away either, and that she needs to see Ryan be put in his place. In Ryan's fourth fight, he struggles to put his opponent away, and the crowd is like less than pleased. Again, this is a spectator sport. You want to give the crowd a good show. To get the win, he gouges his opponent's eye. But after further inspection from the referee, Ryan's DQ'd. That's one of the rules that we laid out. No eye gouging. You're out of here, pal. He's now out of the tournament. So Jake's up now. He walks up, and as he's getting ready to fight, he notices that Ryan's name is crossed out on the board. He asks the ref what happened, and the ref said that it was a DQ. And before Jake can even throw a punch, he just taps out, which I've never seen that before. I've never seen a fighter tap out before a fight. That was a new one. I had been watching mixed martial arts at that point for like 4 years. Never seen that one before. I don't even know if it's happened since. So again, groundbreaking, trailblazing, one of a kind stuff. Never back down is accomplishing here. After Jake taps out, he's now officially out of the tournament. Jake starts to leave the club, and Ryan chases after him. Ryan confronts him about quitting the whole tournament, and Jake says that he doesn't care about some dumb tournament. He just wanted to settle this between him and Ryan. And after some like macho grandstanding, Jake says that Ryan won't do anything because there's no audience there to see it happen. Jake starts to walk away, but Ryan snaps, much like we saw with Jake at the party earlier. He attacks Jake from behind, and now they're brawling in the middle of this parking lot with very little spectators. Word spreads fast, though. Everyone inside the club hears about the fight outside, and they're calling it the real championship fight that's going on outside. So they all rush out to see, and it's a great back and forth. Love the fighting sequence here. Jake is displaying all of his new training, and Ryan is really only focusing on Jake's broken ribs. Again, that's a good call, but you got to mix it up. It's not looking good for our hero here after Ryan slams Jake on the concrete and then picks him up for a guillotine choke. As the life drains from Jake, we have a rush of memories that comes back to him. Why he's fighting, who he's fighting for. Just when we thought that Jake was a goner, he gets the upper hand by using the breathing techniques that Roka taught him. He sends Ryan down for the count after a 3-punch combo and a roundhouse kick. Jake's our guy. Jake's the winner. And he's unofficially, the beatdown king. After the beatdown, life goes on as normal for our characters as far as the school goes. But Ryan has a newfound respect for Jake. After all the training that Roka gave to Jake, it seems like he also learned something from Jake. In the final shot of the movie, we see Roka close up the gym, presumably to head back to Senegal to face his father. And that was never back down. So I've got to know, overall, what'd you think?
You know, off the cuff, I gotta say, not usually my cup of tea, not usually my type of movie. But much like Fast and the Furious, I found enjoyment in this movie. Um, I enjoyed I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would.
For me, I brought this movie to the table. I mentioned it in our very first episode. This is one of my 6 grandfathers worth of movies, so I was bound to enjoy it. Obviously, I used to be very into mixed martial arts when this came out. And honestly, that was like the peak of my fandom. That was Randy Couture. That was Chuck Liddell. That was Frank Mir. That was Vanderlei Silva. Like that was Anderson Silva. Like these are all the guys that you would think of when you think of Affliction, when you think of Hummers. Like when you think of those things, you think of those guys also. So this was when it came out at the peak of my fandom. I watched it when it came out. I've seen it 100 times since then. I've not been as big of a fan here in the last 10 years or so because of what the UFC and that movement has turned into. But I will say that in watching it and rewatching it, which I will rewatch it again, it reminds me of a more fond time that, like just like a yearning for a simpler time. And if anything, that's what I can appreciate about this movie. Again, I said that I would rewatch this movie. Would you?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely it like I said, I enjoyed it. Am I chomping at the bit to rewatch it? No, but if it came on, I wouldn't turn it off.
I'm going to start taking those answers when you say that exact phrase. If it was on, I wouldn't turn it off. I'm just going to take that as a no. Because that doesn't give me any confidence that you would actually like watch it.
I mean, I'm not going to actively search it out. It did pique my interest, though. Sorry, it did pique my interest about the rest of the Never Back Down series.
It shouldn't, because they're not good.
So I'll love them.
So I think Never Back Down 2 is fine. It also has Evan Peters in it. He's the only character that's bridging like the two universes together. And I could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain that there is like 3 other ones after that. And I just Googled it. There are 2 more after that. And they're not good. Like, not even close to being good. I've seen all of them. If I were to rate Never Back Down, No Surrender, and Never Back Down, Revolt, 0.5 star, 1 star maybe, 1.5 stars if I'm being super generous, just because of like the subject matter. And I did like mixed martial arts at some point. Never Back Down 2, I like it because it features more real fighters, or at the very least up and coming fighters. Like you could have definitely seen some of these guys in Bellator or Pride or One Championship fighting or like any of these other things. But as far as substance goes, especially compared to the first one, these are bad. The Never Back Down, the movie, the first one that we just reviewed, was in theaters at one point and it doubled its profit. Shout out to them. These other 3, I would be so surprised if they all broke even, because they truly suck. So unfortunately for you, I don't think that this, even though it did make you curious about the rest of the universe, I wouldn't delve into it. But knowing you, you definitely will. While we're talking about the good one in this franchise, tell me what your favorite thing about this movie was.
My favorite thing about the movie, I think it's got to be, like I touched on it earlier, I think it would have to be the creativeness, especially like showing like the different fight clips through the eyes of the cell phones. Like I just thought that was, I mean, now you wouldn't pick up on that because everybody's got a cell phone, everybody's got, TikTok, or Tic Tac, depending on who says it. Everybody's got social media just at an instant. And I mean, you used to have to really try hard to find what you were into. And so looking at it like that, I just thought that was a really unique way to progress the story of this fight.
If you've seen a couple of our other videos, first of all, thank you. But especially the Power Rangers one, I was a big stickler for the soundtrack and the musical score. I am like that for all movies. But for movies like this, especially, the soundtrack is so important. And that's my favorite thing in this one. This soundtrack fucking rips. It's so good. Not only does it have an elite group of musical artists that still hold up and the songs hold up even after all this time, but it also perfectly encapsulates like that mid 2000s era. Like if I threw all this onto a CD and I threw it on at a house party and I said, "What? Pick a year that this is from," they could probably say 2008 or 2009. I go, "Yep, you're right. Actually, here's just a quick rundown of in my opinion, the best songs in this entire soundtrack. They're on my, not all of them. We'll get to the one that isn't, but most of them are in my daily rotation. They're on my Spotify playlist. They're on my Apple Music playlist. Like, they are great songs. Above and Below by The Bravery, Anthem for the Underdogs by 12 Stones, Teenagers by My Chemical Romance, Someday by Flipside, Under the Knife by Rise Against, Rockstar by Chamillionaire and Lil Wayne, False Pretense by the Red Jumpsuit Apparatus, Stronger by Kanye, Crank That Soulja Boy, the Travis Barker remix. That's the one that's not on my usual playlist. Not really rocking that one. And then, the needle drop for this one, the button on the end of this movie is Time Won't Let Me Go by The Bravery. So good. From top to bottom, there no skips here. All of them were ranging from very good to elite. I love this soundtrack. So now tell me your least favorite thing about this movie.
The mom.
Was it the fighting? Was it
Yeah, it was the fighting. It was the girls. I hated the girls. No, it was the mom. I just did not like her at all. Like, I fucking she got on my nerves. She didn't. And if I'm not picking out a character, if I had to pick out something like technical or anything like that, I would say the fact that, and it's kind of like one of your big pet peeves, is like skimping out on the backstory. Like, I would have loved to have seen what other fights he got in, before they, because his mom talks about, oh, we've bailed you out of jail, we've done this, we've done that. Like, you could have easily clipped that and put his booking photo, or like a quick clip of him like beating some guy up at a Kmart. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that would have added to the story. But yeah, it's either the mom or the lack of the fighting experience or history.
I had two that really bothered me. The main one is literally a story beat, just something that I would have changed. The DQ finish from Ryan really bothered me, because the backstory for him is that he's a 2-time back-to-back beatdown winner. He's going for a triple crown. What would have done more for me as a fan of the movie and as a watcher? I think that it would have made more sense for Jake to lose, to succumb to his injury, for that rib injury, and he gets submitted, knocked out, whatever the case is. He has to leave. And then when Ryan shows up, he realizes that I don't need this beatdown. I've beat this thing twice already. I'm just here to kick Jake Tyler's ass. So then he taps to leave the tournament. And then literally everything else happens the exact same way. They go outside, he calls him out, and then that fight happens. And then Jake becomes even more of a hero, right? By overcoming the odds even more after just losing and getting past his rib injury. I feel like that would have made more of a better story beat for that. The other thing that really bothered me, I didn't even mention it in the review because it bothered me so much. Jake's first day of school, first day of class, he is in history class, and they start talking about Achilles. And there's a section in that class where the teacher asks, how do we know Achilles' motives as a fighter, as a warrior? How do we know? And the answer is Achilles' shield. They would depict things on their shield, their family, their loved ones, whatever the case is. They would put it on their shield as a way to display who they are fighting for. That way they never have to do it again. That's a very historical, solid fact. Love history facts in my movies. What bothered me was that after Jake gets injured and goes back to the locker room to put ice on it, Baja, very on the nose, says, "This is your Achilles shield. This is who you're fighting for, so you never have to fight again." I don't know what the target demographic was at the time. I was 12, 13 years old when this movie came out. So I'm sure that I would have been the target demographic. I knew that that's what Jake was fighting for. I didn't have to be told again by that. I also knew that that was the reason that Achilles' shield was even brought up in this movie at all, was for this moment. I didn't need Amber Heard to tell me that. That really pissed me off. And then watching it as, like, some could say a film snob really pissed me off, because again, don't treat me like I am an individual that is capable of understanding nuance. Don't tell me everything about the movie.
Yeah, that was kind of a throwaway thing, because if you look at what he wore when he came out, he was wearing his dad's Coach Tyler shirt. Like, yeah, that's why he's here. He's here because this is what he's been running from his whole life, or at least his whole teenage young adult life, and he's done running. Like, you could have left it at that, and I think most people would have been like, oh, okay, well, this makes sense.
This is the moment that I've been waiting for. This is our main event, and I don't know the answer to this. I didn't check your Letterboxd before we recorded. What did you give it on Letterboxd out of 5?
3. Give it a solid 3.
Perfectly respectable.
It's, it's not, it didn't reinvent the wheel. There were some cool shots. Honestly, if the mom wouldn't have been such a bitch, I probably would have rated it a little higher. But I feel, honestly, like a 3 from me for a film that I'm not really interested in, like the subject matter of it. I think that's a good score for them.
Yeah, that's like a 7 for normal people. So 3's pretty good for you. I went with a 5. Obviously, this is in, my top 6, my 6 grandfathers worth of movies. I've talked about how much I love the soundtrack and how much of a stickler I am for it. I also mentioned how much it brings me back to a simpler time that I yearn for all the time. So for all of those reasons, despite the nitpicky things that I did not like about this movie, it was a very easy 5 for me. I don't think that it's the best mixed martial arts movie. I don't think that any of the actors, with the exception of Kim Chigonde and Jimon Hansu, I don't think that this cast is like particularly skilled. I don't think that they're impeccable actors. I know for Sean Ferris's case, he is a career Hallmark guy now. I've seen him in multiple Hallmark films, and I bring this movie up every time I see one. So it's not like they're like these thespians that are going to win Academy Awards, like all these things. But because of all the things I talked about, this makes it a 5 out of 5 for me. It's as close to a perfect movie, making me feel that way as you could possibly get. Before I start plugging all of our socials, you now have to tell us what we're going to watch next week and where we can find it.
So I'm going to do you a favor. I've had you in Tubi Hell for quite some time.
You have.
We are going to watch a movie that's on HBO, and it's one that we've talked about that we both had interest in seeing, but we're too poor to go to the movies to see it. Undertone.
Okay. All right. Anything to get me out of Tubi Hell.
So if I get scared, my wife's out of town. If I get scared, I'm going to call you. I know I got to do it before the sun goes down because you're in bed.
I have to be up to get the worms. That's the rule. And beauty sleep and all the other things that I could have said. If you made it this far, really appreciate it. Follow us on all socials for more stuff like this. Follow us at Sad Boy Cinema on TikTok, on Twitter, at our Facebook page, and here on YouTube. Obviously, follow us on Letterboxd as well. I'm going to put our individual Letterboxd handles above our head here. And unless you have anything, I'll send us out of here.
The perfect way to eat a corn dog is to take the fur off first and just eat the fur and throw the wiener away.
That's going to do it for me. That's going to do it for AJ. Be kind. Tell somebody you love them. We'll see you in the next one.
You're gonna have a hard time trying to do that. Might be time to look into a new